I keep forgetting to add this into a clip, and so I'm gonna do this now, probably add it into the intro. Hey, thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. It's been a bit overwhelming, but I also wildly appreciate it. Thanks, that's all I got to say. Hi besties! My name is Angie, this is my channel, maybe I'll read today, and I want to formally welcome you to hell. Here we are, and it looks just like the world that we live in every day, because it turns out we've been in hell this entire time. I'm just kidding, but like not really, because we are in hell, but also I'm mostly talking about the fact that it's the first day of Jante's Inferno Readathon, and by first day I mean technically it hasn't started yet. I'm recording this intro a day early because I'm gonna be really busy tomorrow. I have to wake up early to actually get into work, and then I'm gonna be at work all day, and then after work I have a movie club meeting, and then once I get home it's gonna be like 10ish maybe, and I'm gonna be really sleepy. Saying all of that out loud makes me mildly concerned about my chances in this readathon. So I made a TBR video that provided some context for this readathon, but if you don't want to watch that, that's so valid of you. So the first book of this vlog is Moon of the Crusted Snow. This is like a horror, dystopian, winter, isolation, etc., etc. We're not going to start reading it today because today is not the day, but we are going to start reading it first thing tomorrow. I know what you're thinking. With my whole schedule laid out, where am I going to find the time to read this physical copy of this book? I came prepared, I thought ahead, and I borrowed the audiobook from my library, so at least I can get like an hour of reading done driving to work. Love you, bye! We have a huge update. First and foremost is I don't know if the quality of my videos are gonna change at all moving forward, but I decided for my birthday this year, I'm finally gonna invest on an actual camera. Not because I wanna improve my videos in any way, that's kind of just like an added effect to this. It's mostly because whenever I use my phone, it would just eat up memory and it was just annoying. The second update is that this is the second day of the readathon and we have made tremendous progress. I thought I was only going to be able to read like 2 or 3 chapters yesterday because I had work, I had a movie thing, but instead I'm actually on chapter 23. This book is so different than what I imagined it to be, because from the general summary, I thought it was going to veer towards the supernatural and more specifically towards like vampiric. It was just reminding me a lot of 30 Days of Night starring Josh Hartnett. Not a great movie, but like the premise is basically an isolated town in Alaska during the 30 days of night of winter, and then vampires show up, etc., etc. This is not that. This is more dystopian. This is way more based in reality. So basically we're following this small reservation in Canada, question mark. They start losing power. The people in the reservation aren't too concerned because they're like, yeah, we live in a reservation. Power outages like happen. It hasn't happened a lot recently, but it happened in the past. So maybe this is just that. And then a week passes and they still have no word from the outside world. Then another week passes. They're running out of food. And then these 2 kids who grew up on the reservation but went away for college show up and they're like, hey, things are really fucked up in the city and we got scared. We wanted to come back home. And so at first when I thought this was like a supernaturally kind of horror, I was like, these are the kids I need to be suspicious of. They came back, but they're different. They came back, but they're not them. You know what I mean? I thought it was going to be like a body snatchers kind of situation. Nope. They were just kids who were scared and wanted to be home, and I respect that. And then a worse thing shows up to the reservation. A white man. Everyone is a little on edge, everyone is a little paranoid, but at the end of the day, they're like, we need to help this guy. So they agree, and that's their biggest mistake. Because this guy is fishy. He gets way too comfortable, way too fast. He has no respect for like the community rules. It's just uneasy, it's unsettling, and it's uncomfortable because it's so based in reality. And now I know the camera booktube struggle. My camera just died. I just opened it out of the box and I didn't charge the camera at all, so that's my fault 100%. But just to finish my thoughts, one of the scariest things about this is that when I was listening to it in the car, they were talking about like losing power and losing service, and part of my drive at work is like a lot of back roads and a lot of farmland, and I turned into an empty road and I just like lost connection. Like the audiobook just like completely cut off and I couldn't figure out how to get it back on. It was almost like a preview, like an appetizer of what it would be like to live in this book. And it like freaked me out to my core just because of the timing of it all. And I hated that. However, I'm not hating this book. I like that I was wrong, that this is not a supernatural book. I like that this is way more based in reality. So I'm hoping to finish this book today because only 30 pages left. I'm gonna charge my camera now. I've learned my lesson. I have a lot of work meetings today, but I think I'm going to try and get as much reading done as I can in between the meetings and hopefully be able to start the next book. I'm currently on chapter 25 of Moon of the Crusted Snow. So I've only read a couple of chapters, and I just wanted to jump on here and say I'm concerned. I'm not having a good time. I'm unsettled, and I want to get out of here. And that's not to say that the book is bad. That's just to say that the book is very effective in creating an atmospheric world that sucks to be in. Because it's been a few more weeks into the winter. Things are getting increasingly more bleak. The white guy that I mentioned earlier, his name is Scott. He has kind of created his own group within the community, which is all well and good. Everyone needs to find like their community and their space and whatever. However, this new group is really secretive, is really evasive, and is really controlling. And apparently he has been getting followers in this group because he has been promising them food. He doesn't explain what the food is. He doesn't explain how he's going to get it, but he's basically like, if you follow my word to a T, I will get you food. That can only mean one thing to me, and that's cannibalism. It's day 3 of the Readathon. First update, I finished Moon of the Crusted Snow. Loved this book, gave it 5 stars. I just really liked how based in reality it was. And it was almost like reminiscent of like COVID times, like right at the beginning when like people were stocking up on canned food and people were like hoarding toilet paper. Like it felt very much like that. So I guess that's a fair warning if you don't like reading about the end times. But that's one of the reasons why I liked it. I went into this expecting it was going to be like a supernatural horror and that everything was going to be explained in like a big reveal, and it wasn't. And I actually really appreciated that it wasn't. It's kind of just like, this horrible thing happened. We don't know why. We don't know how long it's gonna happen for. And we just kind of have to adapt and keep living. Also really loved how like the point of the story is the importance of like a community and helping one another, which was really great. So after I finished Moon of the Crusted Snow, I had to continue focusing on work. Took a reading break and started working on this cardigan that I can share with you if you're interested. Little craft update. It doesn't look like much right now because I'm still putting the pieces together. But basically this is the back panel, these are the front panels. And what I worked on last night was just the button band. I made a few mistakes. Oh, you can actually see them a lot clearer on camera than I thought. I had to undo like this one specific line that you can see very clearly here a couple of times because I wasn't really getting the instructions. I'm not too concerned about it because once I put a button through it, you're not gonna see anything, obviously. And then at night I started the Reformatory, and boy howdy, if I thought this was bleak and depressing, I just walked into another equally bleak and depressing novel. I read about 70 something pages last night. We are following these 2 kids, Robert and Gloria, who are living in a small town in Florida in 1950 during the Jim Crow era. They have recently lost their mother, and their father was basically chased out of the South because he was trying to form an all-black union in their town. So he became like public enemy number 1. They threatened him with lynching and he kind of dipped. Unfortunately, that means that Robbie and Gloria are living on their own now. And then one day, one of the white boys in their town tries to assault Gloria, but her younger brother wants to protect his sister, and so he jumps between them and he kicks this white boy, and that sets off the course of events that we must endure for the next 500 pages. After that, he gets arrested and he is sent to the Reformatory School for Boys. And that's kind of where we are currently. It's basically like just his first day at the Reformatory School. And he has kind of already made a rule for himself that he's not gonna cry. He's not gonna show that he's scared because he doesn't want to become a target. Really depressing, really sad stuff because shit like this actually happened. But this isn't just like a historical fiction about the Jim Crow South. It's also a horror book. And so the horror element of this book is that children can see ghosts. I initially thought it was just a Robbie thing, but apparently it's a thing that all kids are attuned to. And basically once you reach a certain age, you kind of like gradually grow out of it. And when Robbie goes to the Reformatory School, he starts smelling this really strong, smelly smell of smoke. Obviously, none of the adults react to this, but he can tell that the other kids can smell it, but they're not reacting either because they don't want to make a show of anything. They're all just trying to stay invisible. And then when he walks into one room, he hears kids screaming and he feels this really intense heat. It also adds a layer to the mystery of what happened at the school, what happened to those boys, who are they, why are they screaming? It's admittedly even heavier than I expected it to be, and I expected it to be kind of heavy. So not the funnest book to pick up for a vlog, but the book that we're gonna stick to. We have a relatively slow day today. I have a hair appointment at 10-ish. Then we have to pick up a book from my local bookstore, and then I think we're just gonna stop by a coffee shop so I can get some reading done. So those are my plans for today. I don't know what you're doing, but those are my plans. And I think I'm just gonna get back into reading. I have a somewhat busy day today. I'm not going to be home for the majority of the day, so I don't know how many updates I can do and how much reading I'm going to get done. But I figured I'd pop in, quick update, hair reveal, and then I can be on my way. This book makes me very sad. This book is a lot. This book is hard to read. And I know that it's like classified as a horror because of like the ghost element to this book. Truly the real horror is just how these kids are treated in the school. I personally hate reading about like kids in pain or kids in fear. And boy, does this book have that. As far as plot goes, we're surprisingly still in like Robbie's first week. I think we're like only on his third day. At dinner, he asks the boys he's sitting with, just like generally like, hey, has anyone ever like ran away from this place? And that kind of like shuts the entire conversation down. And then that night, which is literally his first night at the school, they pull him out of bed and they take him to the fun house. And the fun house is basically a shed where these kids get whipped as a form of punishment. And then outside of the school, his sister's really working hard to try and find a way to get him out. Tried to reach out to like child services and that didn't work in her favor. So now she's like working with her boss to try and like influence the town to get him out. And it's really sweet, but then you also like consider the fact that there are so many boys in that school who unfortunately don't have an older sister or any like form of support system who would go the lengths that she's going to try and get him out. And that's also really sad to think about. I was actually hoping to finish this book before this weekend just because I'm out and about this weekend, so I don't want to like bring this tome with me. Luckily my library does have the audiobook, so I think I'm going to switch to the audiobook for the next couple of days, hopefully make some progress. This is only the second book. This is only the second prompt. We got 7 more to go, but I gotta say, not to jinx it, knock on wood, my choices so far in this readathon have been pretty fire. I have to continue getting ready. I have an hour. I'm mostly done, but I just want to make sure I have everything that I need in my bag, and then I'll just take you along for the ride. We have some activities planned today. We have some food we're gonna eat, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm gonna be so real with you guys. I don't think I'm getting out of hell this year. I don't think I'm gonna make it through this readathon. It's February 12th and I'm still on the second book. Still reading Reformatory. Am I enjoying the shit out of it? Yes! But it's one of those books that I really just need to sit with, because I know in a last update I said, oh, I planned ahead. I got an audiobook and the audiobook was great. The narrator was Southern. I really like Southern accents. It's very atmospheric and shit, but this just feels like one of those books that you have to take your time with and that you have to read physically to really get like the depth of all of it. And so I actually put away the audiobook and I went back to reading the physical book. I'm currently on page 466. A lot has happened, but I also have a lot of corrections to make. I had said in a previous update that all of the kids in this town, in this world, in this universe can see ghosts, and that's only partly true. Yes, other kids are connected to like spirits and they can feel spirits, but that's really as far as it goes for other kids. So although it's kind of a common thing for kids, Robbie is still very significant in the way that he can actually speak and talk and touch ghosts. And that's important because the warden and his lackeys in this school find out that Robbie can do this and kind of assign him this new job where he is there to catch these ghosts. And basically for every ghost that he catches, his sentence will be reduced by a week or something to that effect. And initially he's like, that's great because I really want to go home. But then he realizes that when he catches these ghosts, he's not really like releasing them into the afterlife. Instead, he is essentially helping the warden trap them so he can keep their spirit in a jar. Because if it's not clear, the warden is not a good guy. And I won't go into heavy detail because it is pretty graphic. He is a sadistic, horrible person. It isn't limited to boys who are alive. It extends to boys who have already passed, who he has already hurt and wants to keep around as a fond memory. Like, he is a shitty human being. And so once Robbie finds out how truly cruel this man is, he doesn't want to participate in this ghost catching. And so he kind of has to find a way to work around that. On the other side of things, his sister, I think I mentioned, tried to contact a lawyer, reach out to the NAACP. That quickly backfired, and now she's like, okay, well, we're just gonna have to break him out. So where we're currently at, it's like the night before their planned escape, and I'm stressed. I'll probably see you in a couple of hours when I finish this bad boy. I can already tell you it's a 5-star. So that update is probably going to be very short because I'm telling you right now, this is a 5-star. This has been such a fucking journey, and it has been incredibly visceral and haunting in a lot of ways. But we can get more into that when I actually finish it. Finished the Reformatory last night. Like I said, 5-star read. I have never read a book that made my chest feel so tight and made me feel so like queasy with stress the way that this book made me. And I think that's a feat in itself, to be honest. I think aside from like their super effective writing, the other thing that I loved about this book is just the immense love and loyalty that these siblings have for each other. And it's not just the two siblings, it like extends to their extended family and their community, and that was really beautiful to read. So it's like equal parts horrific and also beautiful to read in its own way. So finish this. We have moved up a circle. Now we're on circle 7, which means that we're reading a book about vampires. And I am currently halfway through the Southern Book Club's Guide of Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. A little bit of a tonal shift. It's a little more comedic, but at the same time, not at all. I unconsciously pulled together the most relevant TBR in the way that each book's themes kind of bleed into the other. Initially, we're just following a group of women who start a book club. They read true crime, they're having fun, and then this guy moves into their neighborhood, and he's a little weird, he's a little off-putting, but he slowly ingratiates himself into the neighborhood. And then they find out in a neighboring community, which is primarily a community of color, and which is primarily a poorer community, kids are being disappeared, and it's all linked to this random sighting of a white man in a white van who keeps kind of like lurking around the community. And so these stay-at-home moms make the connection of the arrival of their neighbor and the arrival of this white man terrorizing this community and connect the dots that it's the same guy. So all that being said, we reach the point in Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, which is a hell of a title, and I'm exhausted every single time I say it, but we've reached the point where the moms tried to do things the right way. They tried to gather evidence, they tried to present it to the police, and ultimately their husband stepped in, dismissed them, said they were crazy, and now they're like, okay, but these kids are still being preyed upon. Now we got to take it into our own hands. We're about to see a bunch of white moms get woke. And I think that's great. I think that's evolution. I have updates, corrections, content warnings for you. Last time we spoke, I was about 50% into the book. Now I'm like about 80%. I'm almost done. But basically, for context, for these updates, for these corrections, for these content warnings, basically this book is broken up into parts. And in my last update, I had just finished a part. And so everything I said about these white women coming together, working against the law, becoming vigilante justice ladies, was just assumptions on my part. I just thought that was like the most obvious trajectory in the course that we were taking. But I should have known better because Grady Hendrix likes to put some like twists and turns in his little stories. So when I turned the page, it immediately said 3 years later, and I was like, oh, so nothing gets resolved now. It's just like more like slow burnish. So that was my bad. So they're not exactly vigilante justice ladies just yet, but instead, basically, the husbands humiliate and gaslight their wives. It turns out that they have become buddies with this vampire man. His name is Jim. I don't know if I've mentioned that already, but just so I don't have to keep referring to him as Vampire Man, his name is Jim. So they're friends with Jim, they're business partners with Jim, they want to include him in the family and all these community events, and so like these women are basically at a loss. I think that sucks in a lot of ways, but it's just like, maybe I'm just built different. But if my partner said, I don't trust this person, I don't want them near my kids, I'm cutting ties immediately. We don't even have to have a conversation. But these men decide to ignore their wives, person that assumedly they have married to be with forever, the person that they have proclaimed to love. And instead they're like, I had a beer with Jim one time and he seems really great, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Have you considered taking Prozac? So like 3 years later, the wives have kind of drifted apart. So that's my correction. Things are slowly building up. I think we're reaching a level at this point where the wives are gonna come back together. They're gonna reunite Avengers style and they're gonna beat this white guy up. So the content warnings that I have to make are also kind of enveloped in the updates, so that's kind of like a 2-for-1er. As expected of Grady Hendrix, he likes to include at least one like really gross body horror scene in his books. So for like My Best Friend's Exorcism, there was a tapeworm. In this one, there's actually 2 that I can think of. In the beginning, there's this really horrible scene with a bunch of rats pouring into a room, like The Shining style. It's just like a wave of rats, and it was described in great detail of how they were climbing on people and like biting off their skin, and it was disgusting. So that's one, that's in the beginning. The second one that I just read, for context, Patricia broke into Jim's house to try and find evidence that he's not a good dude, and she ends up in his attic. He comes home early, and so she has to go into hiding, and she's under a shit ton of like old furniture, old clothes. It's musty, it's disgusting, it's slimy, it's grotesque, but she can't move because if she moves, he's gonna see her because he's also in the attic at this point. And while she's trying to stay safe, stay quiet, stay hidden, a cockroach starts crawling across her face. And then she's like really scared that it's going to go up her nostril. And then something worse happens because this cockroach decides, no, nostril is not for me, crawls over to her ear. And then Grady Hendrix blesses us with like 3 pages of how this cockroach is slowly climbing and digging into her ear. Oh my God, I wanted to throw up. I was like, at this point, girl, get caught, because I can't be in this moment with you forever. But the actual like serious one that I wanted to make mention of was that there is a rape scene. We're not explicitly in the scene with this character, like it happens to her and then she's recounting it to our protagonist. Basically, this person was helping Patricia find evidence, but then she got too scared and she backed out. But Jim knew she was helping, so in retaliation, he broke into her house and raped her. And so that was rough. I was not expecting that from Grady Hendrix. I don't think he's ever done anything that explicit before. So that was rough. At the point where I'm at now, that woman who was raped is in the hospital. They don't know exactly what's wrong with her, but she is dying. And so I think with her dying and with Jim showing a special interest to Patricia's youngest son, she's gonna start to gather the wives together again to really get to the bottom of this and end this dude's life. And so I'm excited to see these white women do something. I like how Grady Hendrix will take like a very common horror trope and kind of turn it on its head and kind of like add a new element to it. Like I always find that really fun and enjoyable about his books, and this one is no different. Hi. I'm putting air on my freaking tires. So I'm chilling while that does its work. I finished the vampire book. I really enjoyed it. Like I said earlier, I unintentionally made this like readathon, this TBR, like very cohesive, because the moral of this story was also like the importance of community and like being able to use whatever skills you have to participate in a community. So now we're reading Rouge. I'm only on about like chapter 5, so not much has happened. We have our protagonist Mirabel and her mom just died. We're like truly at the start of the plot. I'm gonna listen to it a little bit more as I make my way to work, and I even brought the physical copy with me because I think my plan for today is to like hide out in one of the private offices, so when I have like some downtime I can actually do some reading as well. I'm already going to be late to work, so I figured I might as well do this update and then maybe get a coffee, maybe get some brekkie. Like I'm already going to be late, so what's 5 more minutes? Do you feel me? Pretty ironic that I bought a new camera this year and everything, and all of these final clips have been me in my car. It's not my fault, I'm booked and busy. This is not a triumphant final clip. This is a clip of someone who has struggled in the past 24 hours. Because for one, did not finish Rouge by Mona Awad. And for two, I couldn't tell you what happened in that book, even if I tried. So I went to my work thing, I drove an hour and a half, made some beautiful progress in the audiobook, was at the work thing, started feeling a little weird, started feeling a little funky, decided to leave early. So then I was driving home, continued to listen to the audiobook. Things were escalating, I think. There was like a cult, I think. There's a big reveal, perhaps. And then the nausea hit. And then I had to pull over. I vomited. That's what I did. I'm gonna be so honest with you guys. I threw up. I threw up all over myself, all over my car. It was awful. And so the last like 20 minutes of my drive, I was just trying to hold it together. Mona Awad was doing her thing. I was trying to hold it together. I was not doing very well. And then I spent the whole night just like in and out of sleep, trying to stay hydrated. So all that to say is I didn't finish the book. We did not get out of hell. And if anything, we entered a new hell yesterday. Happy to say I'm feeling a lot better. I think next year, if I do this readathon again, which I likely will because I enjoyed it, the big plan, the number one plan, is to have no plans during the readathon. That really interfered with my reading. And then the second plan is if you go to a conference, don't eat the fish. Get anything but the fish. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this journey. And I hope you have a great day. I'm gonna have a great day. I'm gonna take a little drive. I'm gonna have some solo me time, and I think it's gonna be really fun.